going to get into our yoga. For me personally, I feel like I need to switch my perspective a little bit today and switch my flow of energy and circulation, and maybe start with a little inversion for our practice. So if you want to scoot yourself near a wall and place a blanket underneath your low back and do legs up the wall, you're welcome to. If you're near a piece of furniture or you got a chair behind you, take your chair to one end of the mat. You can put an additional towel or blanket on the seat of your chair and bring your legs up on that. If you just got some pillows tonight, you want to stack up a couple pillows and place the pillows into the lower half of the legs. And of course, you are welcome to start your practice however is best for your body. So anything I offer is just a suggestion. And from there, we take it and roll with it however it wants to flow in our practice tonight. But especially in the evening times, if we've been sitting all day, walking around all day, we've probably been with our head up in the air and our feet down on the ground most of the day, unless we already did some yoga. It's a really nice way to move into our evening. So I'm going to mute us right now, but I will give you all a minute to figure out where we want to be. And of course, at any time, you can unmute yourself if you have questions or comments for me. So as we get reorganized here in our space, and if you try something out and it's not working how you thought it would, then you give yourself permission to do something else. Always, always, always. We know our bodies better than anyone else, especially when we tune into them. We take the time to center and allow our attention to move inward. So if you're still getting situated, that's fine. Take a couple another moments, loosen things up, adjust your surroundings, any props you might be using. And then we'll close our eyes. We'll take a couple deep breaths here as we begin our practice. We'll start to relax, feeling the tension leaving the body, letting go of where we came from, letting go of any of our to-do lists. We'll start with a mental scan of the body as we normally do. Mentally moving through the whole body, crown of the head, all the way down and out to the fingertips and toes. And as we're scanning our body, we are consciously continuing to relax, soften the muscles, loosen the joints, let go of any expression on the face. Let a quality of heaviness come over the body. We'll now spread our awareness to the rhythm of the breath. We'll begin by just observing the breath. Simply watch the body inhale and exhale. When we spend time with the breath, it helps calm the mind, soothes our nervous system. And just by sitting with the breath, that breath will grow a little bit more deeply. Maybe start to feel some movement around the abdomen, allowing the body to expand as we breathe in fresh air, prana, and energy tonight. And remembering that exhale is just as important. To exhale away stale old air and energy. So continue to sit with the breath here, trying to breathe as smoothly and evenly as possible in and out through the nose. I'm going to share another passage from the book, Catching the Big Fish. First is a quote from the Upanishads. It says, "Through meditation, one realizes the unbounded. That which is unbounded is happy. There is no happiness in the small." And then from the writing in the book, it says, "Little fish swim on the surface, but the big ones swim down below. If you can expand the container you're fishing in, your consciousness, you can catch bigger fish. Here's how it works. Inside every human being is an ocean of pure, vibrant consciousness. When you transcend in transcendental meditation, you dive down into that ocean of pure consciousness. You splash into it, and it's bliss. You can vibrate with this bliss. Experiencing pure consciousness enlivens it, expands it. It starts to unfold and grow. If you have a golf ball-sized consciousness when you read a book, you'll have a golf ball-sized understanding. When you look out a window, a golf ball-sized awareness. When you wake up in the morning, a golf ball-sized wakefulness. And as you go about your day, a golf ball-sized inner happiness. But if you can expand that consciousness, make it grow, then when you read that book, you'll have more understanding. When you look out, more awareness. When you wake up, more wakefulness. And as you go about your day, more inner happiness. So let's take a couple more deep breaths in whatever position we're in. And then we'll take one more cycle of breath. And on this breath, let's allow it to expand as much as it wants. So we don't force or strain the breath, but we can put a little bit more intention. So on that next inhale, expanding, filling ourselves up as much as we can comfortably. Same thing on the exhale, slowly release the breath. And exhaling as much breath as we possibly can comfortably. It's okay to put a little bit of effort into the bottom of that exhale, meaning a little bit of contraction of the abdominal muscles to help push the breath out of the body. And at the bottom of that exhale, we'll let the breath wander away wherever it wants to. We'll start to come back into the physical body, so waking up the toes and the fingertips. And we all chose a little different pose tonight, which is wonderful. So from wherever you're at, you're going to start to make some natural movements to kind of wake the body up. So if you're in a seated position, you might start stretching your legs out to get blood flowing back down to the legs. If your legs are on the seat of a chair, you can stretch one leg up to the ceiling at a time or rest the backs of the legs against the edge of the seat. If you're in legs up the wall, we'll want to slide our feet down the wall, allowing those knees to open wide in Baddha Konasana for a moment. That will help with our blood pressure. We can let the hands rest on the ankles here, and we'll get a little bit of stretch around those hips as well. We are going to gradually work our way up to a seat. So if you're already there, you can readjust your seat. Those of us that are moving from a different pose, you can try to bring the knees closer towards the body, maybe rock out that low back. If you're near a wall, we might have to wiggle ourselves slightly away from the wall so we have room to roll to one side. And those of us that are on our backs, we'll bring one arm beside the head. We'll roll onto that side and pause for a moment. Letting the head rest on the arm, the top hand to fall to the ground in front of the heart. And then we'll turn the heart towards the ground, press into the ground to slowly bring our bodies up. And as we're coming up, we'll open our eyes and allow our awareness to come back to our surroundings. So we are going to move right into a seated position tonight, where we're going to move into seated bound angle pose. So we'll all probably still want a little bit of a lift unless you really open through your hips tonight, maybe just a smaller wedge. So firmly folded blankets, bolsters, whatever we have, the firmer the better. Yoga blocks are okay too. If we're lifting up a little bit higher, we might want to have support for underneath the knees. If you have yoga blocks, those are great. If you don't, you just stack pillows, books, any item you can find to help with that. So once we're in position, adjust those waistbands so the belly can move freely. Join the soles of the feet together. Find the sit bones, moving the flesh out of the way as needed. Press beside the hips into the ground. That will help float the pelvis. We're trying to encourage the pelvis to be in a neutral position so the spine itself is also in a nice neutral position this evening. Now, depending on, again, our flexibility and how this feels for our knees, we'll draw the heels towards the pubic bone, but don't force them in to the degree that it causes any discomfort throughout the legs. And then have a look at your feet tonight. See if you can draw the mound of the big toes together, the mound of the pinky toes, and then the centers of the heels. So anatomically, we have 3 points on our feet, even though I often refer to the 4 corners or points of the feet. And then flare the toes away from each other. So we're trying to get as much contact with the soles of the feet as we can, flaring the toes apart. Now, ideally, as we look at our feet, we'd like to find this almond shape between the arches. If your feet come flat together, this is actually a great exercise to do, as is toe lifting when we're in our standing positions. So bound angle pose. Lift and lengthen. Remember, lower half of the body is anchored, rooting itself into the ground so that the upper half of the body can rise up, keeping that space between the vertebrae. Come back to the breath. As these muscles start to open, get a little opening around the hip creases. Some of us might gently walk the fingertips forward. Sometimes at the end of the day, we've had more movement throughout our day, so we'll find that we're a little bit more open for our asanas than first thing in the morning. However, if you have been sitting quite a bit throughout the day, you might still experience an equal amount of stiffness. Wherever we are, the breath is our guide. If we are hinging forward at those hips and you have the space to move with your body, continue to walk your fingertips forward, maybe placing another prop out in front of you to rest the forehead. It is going to be important here to draw that low belly in slightly to protect that low back. Use the breath. Try to keep those toes flared away from each other, the 3 points of the feet connected. Energetically feel like you're drawing the head of the thigh bones into the hip sockets. So there's no outward pressure on our thighs. It's an internal reaching of the thigh bones into the hip sockets. One more breath. The inhale will float the head up. If we walked forward, take your time to walk back to the body. We want to sit up nice and tall through the crown of the head. Good. Hands to the outsides of those knees. Float the knees up. Step the feet nice and wide. Then bring the fingertips behind the hips. And we'll do a little windshield wiping action here. Get a little more looseness in the hips. So we're gonna go right into another forward fold. This is either going to be Janu Shirshasana, head to knee pose, or Triangamukha Ekapada Paschimottanasana, 3-limbed, 1-leg stretch of the west pose. So Janu Shirshasana, I'll just show you really quick, is gonna be same position in one leg like Baddha Konasana. The other leg will be extended forward. If you wanna do the other pose, it's going to be an internal rotation of the thigh bone. This isn't for people that maybe have knee issues. You move the calf muscle out of the way. You can still be elevated up on your props, but we wanna tuck that foot in close to the outside of the hip. And so you'll be internally rotated, purposeful compression at the knee, and then be here. So we'll choose which one is gonna work best, mainly on our knees. So let's all start by bringing that right foot in. If you're choosing Janu Shirshasana, you'll let the knee fall open and draw the heel as close in again as is comfortable. If you're elevated and we have the left leg extended, the sole of the foot might not touch the inner thigh because it's going to be closer to the ground. Support that knee as needed. We may continue to sit up tall. Our left leg should be active. So we want to pull those toes strongly towards our shin bone. Feel as if you're trying to lift your kneecap up. Sit bones should be equally rooted and weighted. Holding, breathing here, receiving that stretch up the back of the left leg, still hip opening. Maybe walking fingertips forward, gazing at that left big toe. My Triangamukha people, if you chose to move that calf muscle out of the way, bring the foot beside the hip. Ideally, we'd like that knee pointing straight forward as the left leg. Same thing, the pelvis should be nice and level. So if you notice yourself coming out of alignment in the pelvis, you probably need to lift up higher if you'd like to try this pose. Same thing, you can stay vertical and neutral spine upright, or maybe the breath takes you into a hinge forward. Again, receiving the stretch up the back of the left leg, purposeful compression for that right knee. Now those of us that are starting to move forward, again, drishti to the left toe, foot stays active. If your belly starts to move towards those thigh bones and you can keep the extension in the spine, bring your drishti to that left knee. And if you are starting to come even closer towards the leg, you may do some gentle rounding of the upper back towards the end of this pose, drawing forehead to the knee. And if the knee is pretty close, go ahead and bend your knee up until you make that connection of the knee pressing into the third eye. You might lose some of the stretch for the leg, but it could feel quite nice for the brain to make that acupressure point with the body and the forehead. Remember, we don't force or strain, and the breath should be able to flow freely in the body. In both poses too, if we've hinged forward, try to keep your shoulders square. There is an option to reach for that foot out in front of you as long as we are not collapsing the chest. One more breath. The inhale will float the head up if we've bowed forward. Walk the fingertips back towards the hips. Janu Shirshasana people, float your knee up, extend the leg forward. If we're in Triangamukha, you can lean over to one side. That'll give yourself a little lift. Carefully help that knee up, free the foot, and step the leg forward. We'll pause in seated staff pose, so keep the posture. Open up the vertebra of the back, give your legs a little prance here. Other side, so whatever you practice on your first side, we'll practice it on this side. Left foot steps in. Option to let the knee open, adding support as needed. Heel working towards the pelvic floor, sole of the foot in line with the inner thigh, even if it's not touching it, because they might be on a different level here. Triangamukha. Take a hold of the calf muscle, roll it out, step the foot back. We want that foot to be right along the outside of the hip, toes pointing straight back, knee pointing straight forward as if the leg was extended forward. Equal weight in the sit bones, low belly pulls in slightly, support that low back, open the heart, come back to the breath. Really active right leg. Toes pulling to shin bone, feel as if you're pulling your kneecap up, square your heart and shoulders forward, and we might follow the breath to hinge forward. If we're staying upright, drishti to that big toe. As we move forward, drishti to big toe. If we feel the belly on the thigh, the spine is long, you can bring your drishti to the right knee. Don't assume that this side will do what you did on the first side, so be aware of that. Those of us that are coming a little bit more close to that knee, you may do a little rounding through the upper back, draw the chin to the chest, even bend the knee up to try and get that acupressure point. One more breath on this side. The inhale will float the head up. If we walk forward, take your time to walk back. Keep that spine nice and long as we sit back upright. Janu Shasana people, bring the knee up, stretch the leg out. Triangamukha, you can lean to one side so that we can carefully step the foot back forward. Both legs will sit out. We'll sit up tall in Dandasana. Plant your legs a couple times. Point, pedal the feet, get some blood flowing back down to those legs. All right, from here, we're going to make another transition to our tabletop. So take a moment to move yourself around in your space. From our tabletop, fingers are wide, shoulders over those wrists. Press into the ground so we feel some energy through those arm bones. Stack those knees right underneath the hips. Let's give those legs a nice big stretch. So keep those hips level, low back flat. Right foot's going to stretch behind us, follow the foot to the floor. Now really feel that opening in the back of the knee as we press the heel towards the ground. You may shift some of that energy back to that heel, pressing into the hands. If we're ready for even a little bit more, we'll draw the belly in, try to lift the left knee from the floor. Maybe the whole left leg hovers from the floor. Into our runner's plank, but the concentration is really up the back of the right leg. Take a nice deep breath in. Exhale, bring it down to tabletop. Hips stay level, left leg stretches back. Big stretch for that leg. Open up the eye of the knee. More stretching, shifts the weight back through that heel, equal weight in the hands. Be mindful of where the head is in space. And a little bit more strengthening, we lift the right knee up or try to lift the right knee and foot from the floor. Deep breath in. And exhale, bring it back down to the ground. At any time, we can come up onto our fingertips for Hasta Bandha for our wrists, or make two strong fists and take fists for wrists. So let's get a little more movement in our spine tonight with our cat-cows. On our inhale, we take a gentle back bend, relaxing the belly, stretching from the tip of the tailbone to the crown of the head. On the exhale, the tailbone scoops under, belly pulls in, the back rounds up. Open up the back of the heart, drishti to the belly button. Follow the rhythm of that breath. Let it roll all the way up and down the spine like a wave. Let's bring it back to a neutral position. We'll come off our hands and give our low back and hips another stretch in Balasana or Child's Pose. So why need Child's Pose? Makes a little bit more space for our belly and the upper body to sink towards the ground. Big toes touch. Remember, you're welcome to take props behind you to sit on, behind the knees or between the feet, or simply keep your hips higher up in the air and rest down on your forearms. If we are sitting back to those heels, lead with the navel, pulling the navel into the body, dropping the sit bones down to the ground. More active child pose reaches the index fingers to the front corners of the mat. Finding that extension through the side bodies, and then allow the belly, the heart, and the head to sink to the ground. We want the head supported, whether it's on the ground, supported by stacked fists, or a prop. Now let's spread our awareness to that low back area, right around L5, feeling that lower stretch of the body, sinking even more towards the ground. And even though the upper half of the body is connected to the ground, feel that stretch through the spine, all the way up the back, through the crown of the head. One more breath here. Next inhale, we'll float the head and the body back up to our tabletop. Knees under hips, tuck the toes under, walk those hands about 1 hand's distance forward, fingers nice and wide. Draw that low belly in, we'll press into the ground and come into Adho Mukha Svanasana. So another inversion, head is below the heart. So another way to create space through the whole spine, opening up the legs, improving our circulation here. Try to make the hands as symmetrical as possible, equal distance away from the front of the mat. Roll those upper arm bones away from the ears. Allow the neck to be long and loose. Draw the belly towards the thighs, pressing the thighs back, shifting that weight down the heels, whether they touch or not, doesn't matter. And try to parallel the feet as much as possible. So we often have a tendency to let one foot roll in or have a heel turned in. And we'll just do our best to try to make them look as similar as they can. Even more stretching, walks the dog, bending one knee, allow the opposite heel to sink further towards the ground. We can follow our breath as we switch from side to side. And then we'll try to take one more breath, find some stillness here in the pose, and let the body absorb the whole pose. On the inhale, let's look forward. Those of us moving into Uttanasana, walking feet to hands, hands to feet. You may stay upside down in a forward fold here. Make sure the legs are strong, the core is engaged. Reach for opposite elbows to ragdoll to release the shoulders and head even more. Those of us that modify, we bend our knees and we place the elbows on the thighs so the back isn't getting overly stretched. We can still try to release or dangle one arm at a time, allowing those arms to droop out of the sockets a little bit. And some of us might even be coming upright and forego the forward folding. And then we'll be working on our posture for a moment, standing tall. One more breath here. Forward fold, people. Bend your knees. Place your hands on your thighs, fingers turned in. Tuck that chin to the chest, and on the inhale, press the feet through the floor. Use your strong legs and core to roll up. Inhale, breathing. Restack the spine. The head should be the very last thing that comes up. Once we're upright, immediately turn your palms out. Try to breathe in even more air and reach it up. Big stretch coming out of our forward fold. Bring the palms to touch. Exhale, hands to heart. Take a moment to reset your foundation if needed. Feet parallel, a few inches apart. Unlock those knees. Strong thighs pulling in. front body to back body, anchor that lower buttock to the ground. From the waist up, allow the spine to be long and tall, and no tension here in the face or neck. Going right for our palm tree pose, following the breath. On the inhale, release your arms down, out, reach as wide as you can, lift those heels up, extend to the ceiling. Exhale, slowly try to come back down to the ground. So I learned an interesting thing today at school. I did not know this. Even going, maybe I knew it at one time in art school, but I forgot. We were practicing our proportions in our life drawing class. And they said for the majority of people, our wingspan, so as you extend your arms out from your shoulders, fingertip to fingertip, should equal in length your actual height from the crown of your head to your feet. Now, of course, we're all built a little differently, but I thought that was pretty interesting. And I haven't tried to take a tape measure and see if I'm in proportion yet or not. But think about that wingspan. Reach out when you reach up. And let's do one more. And then see how tall we can get. Good. We'll all meet on the exhale whenever we get there, lowering the heels to the ground, hands to our heart. Awesome. So the next pose, we've been doing this one too, is going to be Parsvottanasana, sometimes called pyramid pose. It is intense stretch, side stretch. So we need to rearrange things on our mat here. Some of you got your chair. If you want to use it as your stepping stone tonight, you can put it to either side of the mat because we'll be staying facing that direction. You may use 2 yoga blocks if you have those. I prefer my chair for this one. So this is going to be another forward fold, a big stretch for the backs of the legs. Really important to keep the extension through the spine as we come into it. And it'll be that hinge at the hip. So we're going to be moving into this position. So I'll give us all a moment to get organized with our goods. And those blocks usually start at the high setting if you're using them, but if you already know where you go, all good. I usually always like to give myself enough support because you can always take it down. So we'll face that one side of our mat. We want to start with some space between our feet, so they should still be hips width apart. Toes pointing forward, knees pointing towards the toes. Stand up nice and tall. Stay connected to the core. On the inhale, draw that big circle up. So we're creating the space in our spine, feeling this extension, maintain it. Exhale, bring the hands back down to the hips. Now the hips should be pointing forward throughout this whole pose. We'll take the right foot back, not into a huge lunge, but a couple feet back. Let the right heel angle in slightly, maybe 10, 15 degrees. If your hips turned out of alignment a little bit, right hip forward, left hip back, so they're pointing straight forward. Draw the elbow blade slightly back. You can do a little bit of engagement between the shoulder blades. Make sure you're not hyperextending though, so pull that front body in. Big breath in. Anchor those feet, lift up your toes. If you forget to anchor them, make sure you're unlocking those jammed knees. Hinge from the hips. Strong legs, strong feet, super strong core. Now we want to feel our hips also remaining balanced, so you can visualize balancing that tray of wine glasses on our back, and we don't want them to spill to one side or the other. Hands may move to our props. If you're using a prop, don't shift all your weight into your hands and sink into it. Let the lower half of the body be anchored. The upper half of the body should be light and long. At first, our drishti can be in front of the foot. The further we hinge. Big stretch up the back of the left leg here. If the breath takes us a little further, fingertips come further down. Bring the drishti to that left big toe. If we feel the belly on our thighs, the spine is still long, you may take your drishti to your knee, and you might even be able to apply Jalandhara Bandha, throat tucking to chest, forehead to knee. If that knee is closed, feel free to bend the knee forward to the forehead, just to feel that contact and that acupressure point. If you tried it and it's not for you tonight, then you just undo it. Try to keep that back heel anchored. One more breath. On the inhale, we want to come about halfway out of the pose, especially if you've gone deeper into it. Walk your fingertips forward, use your props, lift the chest, super strong legs, pull the belly in. On the exhale, we bring one hand at a time to our hips. We are going to be pushing off the front foot. So if you want to bend that knee a little bit, you may. Inhale, lift up through the crown of the head. Come all the way back up to standing, right foot forward. Float those arms down beside the body into Tadasana. Focus the drishti on one spot and just observe and breathe. Turn those palms out. Inhale, reach out wide. Feel that wingspan all the way up to the ceiling. Create this length and extension. Keep it. Exhale, hands to hips. Inhale, left foot steps back. Ideally the same distance as we step back on the first side. The heel can turn in slightly. We do not have to be in a tightrope. You can even widen your stance at any point if you feel off balance. Check in with the hips, left hip forward, right hip back until they're pointing equally to the front corners of the mat. We may engage the upper back to open the chest, but keep the core pulled in. Unlock those knees. If we're knee jammers, take a big breath in. Exhale, we're pouring from the pelvis. Little movement at first. Feel the strength in the legs. The feet are rooted into the ground. Pick up your toes if you lose it. Exhale, maybe a little bit more hinge. We're going to start to feel that big stretch up the back of the right leg. Shifting fingertips towards our props if we're using them. Be careful not to shift your weight into the hands. Drishti might be forward in front of the foot to begin with, especially those of us that are a little higher up. If the breath takes us, we might be bringing our fingertips further down to the ground, bringing our drishti to the right big toe. Balance that tray of wine glasses on that low back. Try not to tip into one hip or the other. Back heel stays grounded. Some of us will move the drishti to the right knee. And if the belly is making its way onto that thigh, the spine is long, you may try to add throat lock, chin to chest, forehead to the knee. Taking a couple more deep breaths here. On the next inhale, we'll gradually move up out of our pose about halfway. So float the heart up, float the chest up, come back up onto those fingertips. Press the feet to the floor, engage the core. On the exhale, bring one hand at a time to those hips. Even bend that front knee a little bit because we're going to push off that front foot. And inhale, lift up to the crown of the head. Exhale, left foot steps forward, arms float out and down into mountain pose. Balance your weight equally on those feet, gaze into one spot. Turn those palms out. Inhale, big reach out to the sides of the room, all the way up. Drishti to thumbs for a little bit of extension. Bring the palms to touch and exhale, hands to heart. All right, so we're gonna make another transition. If you're moving bigger items, be mindful. Use your core. Everything is part of our practice. And we're gonna go for a little bit of our balance work. And we will do what we've been practicing in a few of the last classes. So that is our Vrikshasana or tree pose with maybe a tiny little twist, just to kind of throw us off balance a little bit, to see if we can stay cool, calm, and collected on the inside, even when the world around us is going crazy and there's storms blowing us all over. Is finding that inner peace, as we were talking about earlier. So we'll try to bring the inside of the feet and legs as close together as possible. Unlock those knees. Legs are straight, but they're strong. Compact the hips. Pull into the midline, draw the belly in. Anchor the tailbone towards the ground. Let the upper half of the body grow nice and tall for the crown of the head with no tension in the face or the neck. We'll turn our palms out. Inhale, reach out as wide as we can, all the way up. Maintain this extension through the upper body. Exhale, hands to heart. Start with any drishti you want, the one you're most comfortable with. Float the right heel from the floor. At the hip, open out the knee. So what we've been doing as our little twist and tree is just trying to do something a little differently. So if we always place the foot to the inner calf, maybe we keep the toes down on the ground tonight. What does that do to our practice, mentally, physically? If we always lift the foot up into the inner thigh, maybe we bring it to the calf. If we don't often lift the foot up and it's an option for our knees and our hips, maybe just try it tonight. You want to keep those hips nice and level. Feel the heart slightly lifting upwards into those hands. Lower half the body still anchoring itself through to the ground. And then the other thing we're trying to adjust slightly, and this I think is the more challenging part, is our drishti or our focal point. So if you always tend to look at the same spot, we're going to try to switch it up. So if we look down at the ground, maybe find a spot off at the horizon, maybe look upwards. Even bigger challenge is the tip of the nose drishti, the Nasagra drishti. It is a stepping stone to blind balancing, and it can be very challenging. And basically, you're just turning your eyes inward to try to find the tip of your nose. All the while, trying to maintain that constant, even breath in and out through the nose. One more breath. We'll try our slow release. So depending where the foot is, we might need to make an adjustment there. Knee points forward, extend through the leg. Exhale, drop it down, pause. Take a breath, inhale. Draw a nice big circle through those arms. A chance to re-extend the spine if we kind of sunk into it. Exhale, bring those hands back to our center. Focus the gaze on one spot. Keeping the hips level, compact, draw into the midline, left heel up. At the hip, the knee opens up. We'd like to try to find a balance here. So whatever we did on the first side, if it's available, we try to do it on the second side. And then the second challenge, again, is changing of our focal point. It could be something different. So if you tried the tip of the nose on the first side, maybe you try bringing your gaze upward or keep it similar. I think this is the third or fourth time we've done this little bit of change. And the first two times I could not keep my balance. I was falling all over the place. And it's definitely become a little, I don't like to use more easy or difficult, but more comfortable, let's say. One more breath. And same thing, we'll try our slow release. Just do the best you can, bringing the knee forward, reaching out through the leg, and bringing it back down to the ground. If you bring that foot back down to the ground, you notice a big shift in our hips. I had a little one there. It just means we kind of collapsed into one on the first side. So we'll be a little bit mindful of that. So one more balancing pose tonight. We've also done this one the last couple of classes. It's called pillar pose or swaying tree pose. This is a blind balancing pose. I do want us to try to do it as best we can. If you get really lightheaded or dizzy, obviously open your eyes, just try to keep them very soft, or use the tip of the nose gaze as an alternative. So we'll bring the arms right beside the body, glue them in, palms in. We're turning our whole body into a pillar. So we're like a column holding up a ceiling, so we can't bend or we'll break. So stiffen everything up, squeeze the muscles to the bone. Don't stress the face or the neck. It's the body doing the work, especially the lower half. You can start to look towards the ground, to the tip of the nose, and then eventually we're gonna let the eyelids get heavy and try to close them completely. Make sure you're in a safe space as well. So when we close our eyes, we rely heavily on our vision for our balance. You will probably notice that your body automatically starts to sway in space as it tries to figure out where it is. So don't fight that sway. We're actually gonna use it a little bit here in this practice. So we wanna turn the sway to move front to back. So we're gonna be purposely, keep yourself like a pillar. We're not bending at the waist and bowing forward. We're trying to move the whole body forward into the balls of the feet. And then lean back into those heels. This can be a little scary. Trust yourself. Good. Your arms might kind of flare out every once in a while to kind of catch your balance. That's totally normal. Now try to find the place that we feel equally balanced from the front to the back and see if we can just get a little stillness there, even if it's for a quick moment. Same thing, only this time we're going to move side to side. Again, don't break your pillar. Try to move the whole body slightly to one side. Good, it's hard. And then slightly to the other side. So you should feel a shift in the pressure in one foot to the other. And then same thing, we're going to try to find that place where we feel equal weight in the feet now, so that we're not favoring one side over the other, but we're hovering perfectly over the center of our feet, front to back, side to side. Relax the face, relax the shoulders, keep the lower half of the body super strong. One more breath with the eyes closed if we can. Just trying to find as much stillness as possible. Keeping those eyes closed, turn the palms out. Inhale, reach out as wide as we can, all the way up to the ceiling. Big stretch, palms touch. Exhale, hands to heart. And then on the inhale, softly open the eyelids. Allow our awareness to come back to our surroundings. Good. So I also feel like that one has gotten more comfortable for me too, compared to the previous times we practiced. So that's awesome. All right, we're going to make another big transition. So if we need to move ourselves around on our mat, do so. We'll move ourselves to the front of our mat. Open the feet, hips width apart. Stand nice and tall in our mountain pose. Float those ears over the shoulders, shoulders over the hips, equal weight in those feet. On the inhale, turn those palms out, reach out wide, reach it up to the ceiling. Big stretch, gentle back bend if you like, look to the thumbs. Now on the exhale, micro bend your knees, hinge from those hips, the arms sweep out, back, and around. Maybe pausing halfway, those of you going back upside down into forward fold, give your body a chance to stretch out. One more breath. Inhale, hands to shins, float the heart. Exhale, bend the knees, plant the hands, find the mat. Big step back tonight to downward facing dog, our inverted V position. One more breath here. Next, inhale, lift those heels up as high as we can. Look at the creases across your toes. On the exhale, drop the knees down to the ground. Keep them together if you can. Flatten out the tops of the feet and together if you can. Sitting back into Balasana. This time, hands sweep back to the feet if the head touches the ground. If not, stack your fists, support the head. Try to release the arms to the ground. And then hands under the shoulders, tuck the chin. Inhale, we're going to round it up. One vertebra at a time. Stack the whole spine up through the crown of the head. We'll shift our weight over to either hip and allow our feet to come forward. All right, so it is time to now take ourselves down to the ground. So we'll want to scooch forward about halfway. You can come to one side and walk yourself down. Or you can plant the soles of those feet, open the knees wide, pull the belly in, and try to do a round down, rolling through every part of the spine. Once we all make it down to the ground, reach those arms overhead, adjust the clothing, stretch the legs out, come into your long body stretch. Good stretch a little bit side to side, point and flex the toes a couple times. On the exhale, let's float our arms down, walk those feet in, and draw the knees in towards the body, giving our back a little massage side to side. Supine twist. Keep the knees together, the feet parallel to each other. Again, nice wide wingspan here. Draw the arms out from the shoulders. Exhaling, lower those knees over to the right. Place a prop under the right thigh if they don't easily touch. Place the right hand on the left thigh to deepen the twist. Left shoulder should be making contact with the floor. Head may turn to the left. Close the eyes and take several deep breaths. Bringing out any stress you might have been carrying around from our day, our week. Relax the face, the throat, the shoulders. One more deep breath on this side. All right, inhale, we'll bring the head and the knees back up to neutral. We might need to do a little scooch in our low back, bringing the feet back down to the floor. Adjust some clothing, shoulder blades, whatever we need to do. Keep those knees together, feet parallel to each other. Knees exhale down to the left. Add props as needed. Left hand to top thigh to deepen the twist. Right shoulder sinks into the ground. Head may turn to the right. Slow, deep breaths. Gravity is our friend. Allow it to help traction out the whole body. One more breath. On the inhale, bring the head and the knees back up to center. Readjust as needed. And any other last little movement or pose you feel like you need to do before our final relaxation. Maybe a stretch of the legs upwards, a happy baby. So for our final relaxation tonight, if you do want to go back upside down, you can wiggle your way to a wall and slide your legs back up the wall. Use your chair to rest the lower legs on. Use your pillows. We'll spend some time on our final relaxation tonight. Then I'll use the singing bowl to bring us up for those of us that want to come up to seated to do a little bit of pranayama, mantra, and meditation work. So once we're moving into our final relaxation, we want to be as comfortable as possible. Make any adjustments we need to make in the beginning. Adjust the shoulders, find the back of the head, poof the cheeks, wiggle out the mouth, tongue, and jaw. Maybe adjust the feet a little wider, closer together, depending what position we're choosing. Letting go of controlling the body. Letting go of controlling the breath. Relaxing all the muscles of the body. All the tiny little muscles across the face, around the mouth, tongue, and jaw. Relax the larger muscles of the limbs, down the arms into the hands and fingertips, down the legs into the ankles, feet, and toes. Relax the even larger muscles of the belly, around the hips and hip sockets, the buttocks and thighs. Soften and relax the inside of the body. The breath is easy, quiet, and calm. If the mind wanders, gently bring it back to this peaceful breath, giving ourselves a moment of this day to let go, to relax, and to sink into Shavasana. If you're choosing to come up to a seated position at this time, start to breathe life back into the body, waking up the toes and fingertips. Rock the head, roll the wrists and ankles. Taking any other gentle, natural movements to allow the body to wake up. Remember to draw the knees in and pause on one side for a moment in Supta Balasana, sleeping baby pose. And then trying to keep those eyes soft or closed, pressing into the ground to bring the body up to a seat. Use support under the sit bones, adjust the clothing, the surroundings, support the legs and knees as needed. Any comfortable position in the legs, cross-legged, heel to heel. If you practice half lotus or full lotus, you're welcome to practice those postures. We'll bring the hands into Chin Mudra, index finger to thumb with the other 3 fingers extended, resting the hands on the knees, either palms up or palms down, whatever feels more natural for you tonight. Let the lower half of the body sink towards the earth, and from the waistline up, let the spine grow tall and long, vertebra by vertebra, all the way up the back to the crown of the head. Trying to maintain this posture. We'll move right into our yogic breathing. This is our belly diaphragmic pranayama. So we'll start to concentrate around the navel center. Breathing in and out through the nose. On the inhales, we relax the belly completely. Let it expand like a balloon. On the exhale, we contract the abdominal muscles, drawing the navel inward towards the spine. Inhale, relaxes the belly, it expands. This allows our diaphragm to drop down, pulling that breath deep into the lungs. And on the exhale, when we contract the abdominal muscles, drawing the belly inward, it pushes the diaphragm up, helping to expel that stale old air out of the body. If the mind wanders, bring it back to that navel center, the rhythm of the breath. We may also mentally count our breath to help regulate and keep it even and equal. So on the inhale, mentally counting the number that we're expanding the abdomen. When we get to the exhale, we try to breathe the same number out. Cycle through 2 more rounds at your own rhythm and pace. Remembering that we want to finish our pranayama on an exhale. So on that next exhale, exhale completely. Then let go of trying to follow and control the breath. It will wander away wherever it wants to. Notice the posture in the body. Sit up a little bit taller if needed. And then we'll go right into our mantra this evening. The mantra we've been practicing is Om Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu, which means may all people in the universe be happy. I'll start it off. Feel free to join in at home. We'll go for a few rounds and then let the verbal mantra fade away. You may continue to mentally repeat the mantra. You may simply sit with the breath or focus the mind's eye at the third eye center. And then once again, I'll use the singing bowl to wrap up our practice. Om Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. 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 Om Sarve Sukhino For anyone still in a supine position, take this time to come back to the breath, breathing life back into the body. Take a moment to gently wake the body up. Remember to pause on one side before coming up to a seated position. Those of us already in a seated position, notice the posture. Continue to lift and lengthen through the crown of the head. Relax the face completely. Notice the weight of the shoulders and elbows falling away from the ears. Notice the weight of the hands on the knees. Feel the lower half of the body sink and be grounded into the earth and ground below. And then try to visualize the spinal column growing taller, creating space between each vertebra, lifting and lengthening up towards the sky. And then being mindful of our surroundings, we'll take just a couple more breaths together tonight. Reach those arms out beside the body, palms up. Another big breath in. Reach those arms out nice and wide, all the way up overhead. Gathering up everything we need for the rest of our night. Turn those palms out, big breath out. Float the fingertips all the way back down to the ground. Letting go of all that other junk we don't need tonight. One more time. Inhale those arms up, big stretch. Bring the palms to touch. Exhale the hands to our heart center. Humbly bow the head down to the heart to honor and thank ourselves, our bodies, each other, and anyone else that continues to make it possible for us to come together and practice our yoga together. Join me in the Om Shanti mantra if you like, starting with a deep breath in through the nose. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat.